What's up, guys? Mortarman here with the Next Gamer Network, back again with another video commentary, and today's topic is going to be a little story about when I was homeless, how that happened, and what I went through during this time. In the background you will see some Battlefield 3 gameplay. I'm not sure what game this is. I have recorded many different games and set them aside to use them for my commentaries, so it wouldn't surprise me at all if you see some really crappy gameplay, because I am really just not that good at this game. However, I love it, and I wanted to put the Battlefield 3 in the background, so I hope you guys get some enjoyment out of the gameplay while I dazzle you with my amazing commentary. Alright, so let's begin. This situation took place within about a 3 to 4 month period of time. This took place in the year 2004, and I had just come home from the Army, and during this time I was kind of in a transitional phase, you know, adjusting to civilian life, and at this particular time I had made arrangements to stay briefly with my dad out in the country in a small town, actually where I live currently, and unfortunately my dad is no longer with me. He has since passed away. But at this particular time, I had made arrangements to stay with him and my stepmother for a short period of time until I made the transition back to the Dallas area to be closer to more jobs and opportunity, because out here in the country there really just isn't that much opportunity for a young man looking for a job. So I stayed with my dad for I think a couple of weeks maybe, made some preparations to move back to Dallas, and I was going to stay with my mother for a short period. And my mother lived with my stepdad at the time, and him and I had a very restrictive relationship, I guess you could say. We did not get along that well on most days, but she had talked to him, and he decided, yeah, it was cool, I could come there and stay for a little bit, but I needed to immediately try to figure out what I was going to do. So when I came to Dallas from my dad's, just going to stay at my mother's for a little while, I didn't really have a real laid out plan, but I had a lot of friends that I was going to get back in contact with and see who would be willing to, you know, let me stay with them or roommate up or something like that once I found a job. So here I go on the job search and everything, and I'm trying to figure out what on earth I'm going to do, because an infantry soldier trains to kill, and there really isn't much of a need for that in the normal community. So after looking for a job for a little while, I found a trucking job, and it's not big rigs. At the time, I owned a four-door dually, which is a dual-wheeled pickup truck, 1 ton. I don't know if they have those in other countries, but here in the United States we just call them dualies. It's basically a big-ass truck that you can haul shit with. And I had found this guy who had a company, a trucking company, and if I had my own truck, then he would put the trailer on my truck, you know, with all the you know, stuff in it or whatever, and I would deliver all the goods in the truck. And so this required me to be out on the road. And so during the time that I had this job, you know, I was back and forth and everything, and I hooked up with an old friend of mine who lived with his mother, and she agreed to let me stay there as long as I worked and everything. And so it was cool. They had kind of a big house, and there was plenty of room, and it was just him and his mother there. And so they agreed to let me stay there, you know, for a while and everything was good for a while. But then I crossed paths with a girl that I used to know, who was basically, how do you say, an acquaintance. She was an acquaintance, somebody that I knew but I did not know really well, but she was very attractive, and she was a mutual friend of many other buddies of mine, and in fact had dated a couple of them. And so I ran into her like at a club one night, and we hit it off really good. I mean, we knew each other, but I don't know, there was just some kind of spark, you know. And so we got to hanging out and everything, and we exchanged numbers and stuff, you know, and we definitely plan to see each other again. And so I think within just a few days we were able to hook back up and spend some time together. We ended up spending the weekend together. One thing leads to another, you know, and we're basically hooked up like a couple. I mean, like really fast, you know. And but it was great. Everything was you know, was good. She was like I said, she was a very attractive girl. She had her own house, and she basically decided that it'd be a good idea that I move in with her. So I basically came, you know, out of the Army, stayed with my dad for a brief period, stayed with my mother for a brief period, moved in with a buddy of mine and his mother for I don't know, I really don't know how long that lasted. Maybe a couple months. I'm not sure. And then I hooked up with this old girl friend of mine, and then we became a couple. Next thing you know, I moved in with her. So this all happened over the course of, well, I could have my timelines wrong, but it seems like that all happened over a few months. And then once I got, you know, hooked up with her and living with her in her house, everything was good for quite a while. We dated for some time, and the only problem that I had with her at that particular time was that she liked to party a lot, and I had a job, and I was trying to stay busy and, you know, keep my responsibilities about me and stuff. And she liked to party a lot, and there was always a lot of people at our house. Most of them I didn't even know. And her parents were wealthy, and we lived in one of her parents' houses. It was a big ass house, and so like I would wake up in the morning and there'd be like 10 people in there, 10-15 people that I'd never even seen before, passed out all over the place, you know. And at first it was fun. We always had company, you know, we were partying, having get-togethers and whatnot. And then eventually it became a problem, you know, and she was not about to change her lifestyle for me. And so we began to argue quite a bit, you know, and it just kept building. The tension was the tension in the air was really thick. You could cut it with a knife. And eventually one night we had a really big fight, and like about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, she just basically kicks me out, literally in the middle of the night. Well, I didn't have a backup plan. You know, I basically had all of my clothes in a bag, I had my stuff in a storage unit, and I had my truck. And that was pretty much it. I mean, she literally threw my shit out into the yard and locked the door on me, and there was even people there. Like, she made a scene, like, in front of people and everything. It was pretty embarrassing. Anyway, you know, I got my shit and I left, but I didn't have anywhere to go, so I went to my job. I went to the trucking company where I worked, and I parked my truck right in front of the front of the building, and I went to sleep and woke up the next morning, and all the guys were coming in to go to work, you know. And I come in, and my boss is like, "What's up, dude? How come you're, you know, already here at this early in the morning? Did you like pass out in the, you know, in the parking lot or what, you know?" Because it was like way earlier than we're supposed to be there for work. I said, "Yeah, man, my girlfriend kicked me out in the middle of the night, and I didn't have anywhere to go, so I just slept in my truck in the, you know, in the parking lot." And he's like, "Okay, well, I hope you get that straightened out, you know." And so I go on about my work, you know, trying, I guess, going to work back and forth, you know, out of town and such. And while I'm out on the road, I can just, you know, sleep in my truck in truck stops or whatnot, because it's not really like being homeless when you're out working. But when you're off of work and you literally don't have any place to go, well, then that's when things kind of change. So basically, I told my mom all about it, and she was like, "Well, you can come here and stay, you know, for a few days at a time if you need to. But you know, there's that problem, you know, with my stepdad, and so he didn't want it to turn into anything long term." So I would go to work, you know, for a few days, and then I would come back, you know, into town, and then I would either stay with a friend for a night or stay with my mom, you know, for a couple of nights, and then I would either sleep in my truck in a parking lot somewhere, you know, or whatever, just kind of rotating around so that I wasn't literally out on the street. But, you know, so I did have a place to, like, wash my laundry every now and then. My buddy would let me come over to his house, and the deal was, this was a different friend. He said, okay, you can stay here for 2 nights in a row, but no more than 2. We're just going to lay down them ground rules right now. You can stay here for 2 nights, but no more than 2, and then you can go, and then you can come back like next week and do it all over again if you want. I just don't want it to be like a habit. I was okay, well, you know, I'll get something going, and I'll figure something out. So there were many nights where I slept in my truck like in a Walmart parking lot. And this was during a very cold time of the year, and so I would have to leave my truck running with the heater on during the night. But it was a diesel, so it didn't really get that bad of gas mileage, you know, so it didn't really cost that much for it to run all night long. But so that was the deal. I would go and spend a couple of nights at one friend's house. Then I would go to my mother's on occasion. I didn't really like going over there all the time, so I really just went when I just really needed to, you know, wash my clothes, or, you know, if I just wanted to see my mom. I would go over there for, you know, a couple of days, and I really just didn't feel that comfortable being there with my stepdad and everything. So most of the time I would spend in my truck in a parking lot somewhere, and I would have to rotate around because the police came and knocked on my door, on my window on my truck one night in the middle of the night. It was cold as hell outside. I had my truck running. I had the windows covered up with sheets and stuff like that so nobody could see in, and I was sound asleep in the back seat. It was a big crew cab truck, so there was a full-size bench seat in the back, and that's where I was sleeping. And I had it actually pretty comfortable in there. And there was a knock on the window one night, and I thought somebody was going to try to rob me or steal my truck, you know, or something. It turns out it's the police. I rolled down the window, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "What does it look like I'm doing? I'm sleeping." He's like, "Well, they complained that somebody was camped out in the parking lot, and legally you can't sleep here overnight." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I don't have anywhere else to go. I'm homeless. This is, you know, pretty much it. This is all I got is this truck. I'm laid over for a couple of days until I go back out on the road." I'm like, "Well, sorry, you know, we don't care what you do, but you can't do it here," sort of thing. So I have to move my truck. So I drive around a neighborhood, and I find another like grocery store or whatever, and I go and sleep in that parking lot, you know. So that's what I started doing. I just would go around to different businesses or whatever that were closed at night, and that's where I would sleep. So it was a pretty lonely time in my life. It was probably one of the lowest times in my life. But I'll tell you what, looking back on it now, it made me stronger. It made me I think it made me a better man, and I wouldn't do it over again, but I certainly would not change things, if you know what I mean. I wouldn't go back and change it. I'm satisfied with the way that it happened. It was, I think it helps build character. If you have to go through something like that in life, that's a difficult time, you'd be surprised at what you can get yourself through emotionally if you really need to. Certainly not by choice, but you know, if something like that happens, you will, as we say in the Army, adapt and overcome. You will adapt and overcome, and that's what I did. You know, I had the support of my family. It wasn't like I was completely left out in the cold, but they were just in a position where they could not really do anything for me that particular time. It wasn't that, I mean, my family does not have a lot of money. They're just ordinary folks, and I had a job, so I did have some money, but getting an apartment on such short notice and getting moved in, I didn't own any furniture or anything, you know, at the time, and so there just wasn't really anywhere for me to go, literally. During this time also, I met a friend of mine that I hadn't seen in a while, and him and his wife were getting a divorce. And so he had a house that was up for sale, but it was empty. And we had this other mutual friend who had a lot of drug problems in the past, but during this particular time, he was straightened out. He was doing good. And so we made arrangements for me and him to move into the vacant house and start taking care of the yard and taking care of the house until it was sold. And so I moved all of my things in, which basically just duffel bags of clothes. I did have a bed, and like a little lamp table, you know, just basic stuff to put in a bedroom. I didn't really have like a whole house full of stuff, because when I went to the Army I sold all my shit. So we moved in there, and then I think I was home about a week, and then it was time for me to go back out on the road. And so this was what I thought was my, you know, my way back into regular life. I was no longer going to be homeless and living out on the street in my truck, you know, in parking lots. So I was happy that this had worked out. You know, this was a turning point in the situation. So I happily went out onto the road, back to work, driving way, you know, up and down the East Coast. You know, these are like 3,000 and 4,000 mile trips. So I would literally be gone for, you know, a week to 10 days, if not longer. So anyway, while I was gone, the dude that I was staying with, or my roommate, had a relapse and went and got messed up on some drugs. And when I came back, the house was trashed and everything in my room was gone. So this dude basically went and got high and needed money for more drugs, and stole my stuff, and I guess he sold it. I really don't know what all he did with it. And he was nowhere to be found. He literally skipped town and left the house in shambles, and me there all by myself. So I called my friend that owned the house and told him what had happened. He came over and assessed the damage, and because this guy had really trashed the place. I mean, there was holes in the walls and all kinds of stuff. So here I am again, having to move out of this place, feeling somewhat responsible for the damage that was done to my buddy's house. Even though I did not do it, I still felt bad about it. So here I go again, right back into the same situation. What I thought was going to be a good situation turned around rather quickly, and so here I am. Now the thing is worse, because I don't even own nothing. Like, I own the clothes and stuff that was in my truck when I left, and that's it. I mean, this fool literally stole everything. I mean, I had picture albums, I had a lot of keepsakes, stuff that I had been saving all of my life. I had clothes that he couldn't even wear. You know, my bed, my mattress, my TV. You know, I mean, just everything that I owned in the whole world, that dude stole. So now I'm really in worse shape than I was before. So basically, I'm back out on the street, living in my truck again, and I end up, I guess, running into another old friend of mine. I mean, I had a lot of friends, just everybody was spread out. A lot of, you know, I'm an older guy, so a lot of my friends are married and got kids, have moved out, you know, moved away and this and that. So everybody's real spread out. But, you know, on occasion when I would go out to a restaurant or go to a club or whatever, I would, you know, run into some of the old people that I used to know. And so I was at a Hooters restaurant one day, and I ran into some buddies of mine, and one of our old friends walks in, and was, you know, talking to him and everything. Turns out his girlfriend just split up with him. He had a house, and he was looking for a roommate. So it was perfect timing for me, because this was a really upstanding guy. He had a really good job. He was straight. He wasn't, you know, going to be on the drugs or nothing like that. So, I mean, he had his shit together. He was just going through a divorce. And so I ended up moving in with him, and I eventually got a different job. And that job turned out to be really good, and that's what led to me eventually opening up my own business. So that's pretty much how the story ends. I'm not exactly sure how the timeline falls. I believe that I was homeless for approximately 3 to 4 months, but this whole experience from start to finish may have lasted about 6 months to 7 months altogether. I just want to, you know, try to get the story straight. I have not told this to many people. This is the very first time that I have told this online. And not even all of my family members know about the situation. Only my closest family members know. And only a few really close friends, basically the people who were involved in the story firsthand, were the only people that knew. And so this was something that I decided might be something I would want to share with you guys. Liggsy, one of our directors, if you're watching the video now, 20 minutes into it, thanks, man. You know, I had mentioned this in a prior video just briefly, and he pointed out that he thought it might be a good video, you know, if I could bring myself to tell the story. And so one day we were talking on Skype, you know, and I said, you know what, man, I think I could tell that story. There's some details that I'll need to leave out due to some stuff that I don't want to share online that I just don't think everybody should know. But for the most part, you know, I could tell the story truthfully and it would still be interesting and heartfelt enough for everybody to enjoy. So I hope that I didn't bore you too much. I didn't really know how long the video was going to be when I started. I was like, man, you know, this could end up being like a 30 or 40 minute video if I'm not careful. I don't want to ramble. And so I think I included all the most important facts in the story, enough for you to get an idea of what I went through at that time in my life. And everything has been better since then. That, like I said, that was the lowest part, I think, of my life during that time. And you know, looking back on it, like I said, I wouldn't change a thing. That girl did me a favor when she kicked me out, because she wasn't going anywhere. She was living off of her parents, and she was settled with the way that her lifestyle was, and you know, it wasn't going anywhere. She had no intentions of getting a job or bettering herself. And you know, it just, looking back on it now, she kicked me out. She did my ass a favor. So I'm not gonna say her name, but she's out there somewhere, and you know, thank you for doing me a big ass favor and kicking me out when you did. You know, it was a trying time, but it made me a better man, and I'm glad for it. So alright guys, I'm gonna wrap this up. I've been talking long enough. I hope you guys enjoyed my wonderful commentary and my mediocre gameplay at best. This is Mortarman with the Next Gamer Network. As always, thank you for watching, and have a great day.